Welcome to the Media Leader Podcast. I'm Jack Benjamin. It's one thing to get your CFO's attention and a marketing budget approved. It's another to deploy that investment in a way that builds your brand and delivers on boardroom promises. In a break from our typical interview format, the Media Leader team wanted to bring you one further discussion held at last month's Future of Media Manchester event. To close that day, the Media Leader's content director, James Longhurst, hosted a panel on the challenges clients and agencies face throughout the year as they seek to meet and exceed boardroom expectations. How do you optimize for business KPIs? How do you balance short-term demands with long-term brand building when every pound spent is being scrutinized? How do you build the case for bigger media budgets during a business downturn? All these questions and more were tackled by Neil Jones from Boots, Laura Kell from Havas Media Network UK, Stu Lunn from Kinesso, and Rob Linton from MiQ. We'll be back with more interviews next week and in the near future, but for now, we hope you enjoy.
So thank you to my fabulous panel. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in a second. What we're going to do is we're going to go through the year of your budgeting cycle. So we're going to start at the beginning, take you back to the mists of time, back to 2024, where Keir Starmer was doing not so great as a Prime Minister, Man United were average, and Reform UK were on the rise, you know, if you can think back to that far. Let's introduce each other first. So Rob, tell us about you.
Yeah, I'm Rob. I'm the MD for MiQ in the regions, so basically everywhere north of London, and we are a programmatic technology company, so working with brands and agencies to deliver programmatic media campaigns.
Amazing, thanks Rob. Laura.
I'm Laura Kell. I'm Chief Data and Product Officer for the Havas Media Network in the UK, including the Havas Manchester office here.
Awesome. Afternoon everyone, I'm Neil Jones. I'm the Head of Performance Media at Boots UK, look after everything digital marketing related at Boots UK essentially.
Good afternoon, I'm Stu Lunn, Group Managing Director for Kinesso UK and Ireland, which is IPG's performance media and tech.
Awesome, thank you. So I'm conscious that I'm the only non-northerner on this panel, so my aim is to talk as little as possible and let you guys talk. So let's go back to the start of the budgeting year, where we're facing the CFO, or our clients facing the CFO, you know, kind of, what's the one, to try and secure our marketing budget, what's the one metric that we're going to lead on to try and make sure that the CFO of our client or our agency really sees marketing as an investment rather than a cost? And what potentially are the metrics we're not going to talk so much about in that argument? Rob, do you want to kick us off from your perspective?
Yeah, at MiQ we tend to offer every metric. So we sit across the whole programmatic ecosystem, so that by default means we can, tend to offer most metrics. But we were chatting before, and Neil was mentioning that when he chats to his, I don't want to steal your line, but not to necessarily lead with media KPI, particularly when it's to finance. So, I think what we chatted about a little bit, and what I think is that moving away from media KPIs and focusing on what a particular channel or what your media mix is going to deliver at the end of the day always makes the most sense. And so however that translates when you're chatting to a CFO or anyone in charge of budget, whether it's EBIT or whatever they're looking at, is what I would lead with.
Cool.
Well, I think it's a great question as well, to think that at the start of the year, the priority needs to be on saying, do we have enough investment in order to achieve the target, whatever it might be. I guess for an agency like Havas, we'd be asked that question at the annual planning point. Yeah. And I still believe that econometrics is the most, I still think that there isn't a better technique for isolating media's contribution, because it's the only thing as well that takes into account all the other things as well that drive business KPIs. And to the question of what KPI should it be, I think it always should be revenue. I guess the challenge there, and perhaps this is one for Neil, is being given a clear financial goal for the year. That's what we're always looking at then is, well, given what the target is, do we have sufficient budget in order to achieve that target? And we'd always want to be looking at in real ROI terms.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so given the client perspective, I feel like I'm outnumbered today. So I think the most important metric really is the one that's most important to the business. So I'm going to give you a bit of a look under the hood in terms of Boots UK. So I've been there now for almost, now actually this week weirdly is my anniversary, 3 years. So 2.5 years of those years really have been spent driving towards top-line revenue and hitting that top-line revenue target. Over the last 6 months, really, we've kind of pivoted a little bit more to talk about profit. And that really is because the business has just been sold. So many of you may have seen that in the news. We were sold by, basically like broke away from the Walgreens group, we've been bought by private equity. Naturally, they purchased the company on EBITDA. They'll buy it on one kind of EBITDA operating kind of profit, sell it on another one, make a profit gain there. The moment that kind of happened, I pivoted the team towards looking at more of those kind of like deeper financial metrics, really. And I think in the team, there's, especially in media in general, but definitely in our kind of in-house team, maybe there was a little bit of lack of that financial kind of acumen. So I had to do a little bit of kind of education there to kind of make sure that we can speak the same language, so we can talk about omni-value, online value, incrementality, and all of that kind of stuff, but also understand what our kind of OPEX is as a team, how much we're paying the team in terms of salaries, tools, office costs. We've just opened an office in Manchester. And then kind of bundling all that in together and looking at how much we're truly making as a team and as a department, really. So the other thing I would probably just kind of throw out there is I did almost said Canva then, I did a Coursera. I don't think anyone's doing courses on Canva. I did a Coursera course a little while ago, which was finance for non-finance managers, and I would definitely recommend that to anybody who maybe is looking to kind of increase their level of financial acumen, because talking about things like, again, like OPEX, DCF, looking at how finance assess opportunities today versus opportunities tomorrow, all that kind of stuff I think is really key. But I think the most least important one, as you mentioned, I think is anything to do with media. Like the CFO doesn't really tend to kind of identify with those kind of media metrics like impressions and clicks and CTR and conversion rate. It's more how much demand have we driven, Neil, and how much demand have we harvested, and the conversation really kind of begins and ends there.
Yeah. Amazing, thank you. Stu?
I forgot the question. What's the question? It takes a long time to get down. So, yeah, it's an interesting one for me. Like, I feel like agency-client relationship, putting an agency lens on it, historically is, to me, it's four pillars really: inputs, outputs, outcomes, and impacts. And historically, what agencies are really good at is creating models that are based around inputs and outputs, less so around the impact and outcomes that you have on the business. And to Neil's point, I mean, you know, bluntly, does a CFO give a shit about those bits, or am I really more interested in what you can deliver for my business here? So your metrics at the start of the year, I think, really need to be heavily business focused, and that, you know, currently is a huge challenge, I think, for our industry, for anyone who's in the room today. If you're a marketer or your agency, you know, we commissioned a report earlier this year which tells you, 3,500 as a sample size, and then 51% of the C-suite still see marketing and media as a cost, not a revenue driver.
Yeah.
And of that same number, 1 in 5 of that C-suite have spoken to their marketing lead in the last month. Like, they're pretty damning statistics in terms of, and that tells you a problem that we've got, because you can build on that, and actually if you speak to those marketers, like, what you find is that for them, 2 out of 3 of them, when you speak to them and say what's the biggest capability gap that they've got in their own business, it's the ability to prove marketing effectiveness. And that should frighten everyone, really, in terms of those conversations that you're trying to have. And I think that's why we see such a clamour as well. I'm sure we'll get to AI at some point. I'm sure we've all heard about that. But when we think about AI itself, the main question that you get asked as an agency, almost verbatim, slightly different reframing of these words, but it's, what cost can you save me? Like, what, and so it's about cost, and that's a proxy from the fact that too many times we're not having the right conversations around business. And so to really throw the hand grenade out there, like, if we don't realise that change is coming and find a way for us to be better at it, then what we're looking at is disintermediation of agency revenue at a fairly massive scale.
That's interesting, though, even starting the conversation on AI to say, how much is this going to save me, rather than how much is this going to make me.
Yeah, totally.
It seems like we're starting the next phase with exactly the same mindset. I mean, I've been working in media for 20 years, and I've been saying for all that time, we've got to prove that media is an investment, not a cost. So, I mean, it's hard to know then what are we doing wrong, because I mean, I work with a team who builds the econometric models. I know they're good, I know they're robust and sound. I know Boots do tons of econometric modelling. But still, we still seem to be lacking that proof. I don't want this to just become an interview of you, Neil. It's like, that proof. So even with evidence, it still feels that you can be battling, and that's even just looking at the short-term media impact. When we start to talk about longer-term effects, it feels like we are still on a bit of a uphill battle, even though we've got all the tools to be able to do it.
I think I think that comes back to C-suite buy-in though as well, because CMO might be bought into that econometrics model fully, but again, if you go back to the question on, will the CFO be? I suppose that could always be different, and that's like a personal, individual thing, isn't it?
And I think so. Two things I wanted to pick up in there that was really fascinating for me is so one on the. We may have the proof and the evidence, but kind of to the point, do we speak the same language? Kind of like often you get two marketeers in a room. They've said exactly the same thing. They leave the room, think they've agreed something, but they've got a different understanding of what one of those words is. Kind of do we speak the same language as the CFO and the CEO? And is it just a simple case of like, is the onus on us as marketeers to train ourselves into that language, as you said?
Well, I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting what Neil said.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think do we give like really quick, don't tell the PR team this because they'll shoot me and won't allow me to go on any more stages. But in terms of our measurement structure, the econometrics at the top, like really good picture, that drills down to a fairly decent level, because we don't really want econometrics to kind of say paid social. We want paid social, we want it split down into platform, and we kind of want an idea like DPA versus non-DPA activity, right? So we want it like a decent level. Then underneath that, we work with a company called Measured.com. They do our kind of geo-lift incrementality testing. Fantastic company based in the US. And then under that, we do a lot of kind of live ramp CLS testing. So with those three kind of tiers, like super robust. Like so, they tend to line up. So when we've got three different partners saying the same thing, it tends to kind of like build that kind of that confidence and that faith. But I say that recently, over the last month, we had a bit of a deep dive into the Omni kind of picture, and it came out that the ROI for the online, again, if our head of measurement was in this room, probably be like, Neil, please stop. But the online activity came out a lot lower than what we thought, and the offline ROI of the channels was massive. And we kind of looked at it and we thought, how is PPC driving like a -1 ROI, and out of home is driving like a 5? And we looked at it, and it can be difficult when you receive that latest wave and you go, this doesn't really fit with anything that we've kind of looked at before. And I think that still happens. But I think the great thing in terms of what we've managed to achieve is taking the econometrics, then validating it with other partners, and that tends to work really well.
I always think though, if you did a test where you gave 10 analysts the same data set, they would probably produce 10 different results, and then you say, well, which one can you trust? And I would say the one done by an experienced analyst who knows what they're doing. That, and I think that's quite risky as well when you start to look at the promise now of real-time automated econometrics and analysis that can't be right. Because for that same challenge of like 10 people, 10, there's the one that's right is the one that's run by someone who's experienced and understands, how to read things. And
I guess the challenge for us is to make sure that's the one that the CFO sees, right? The analysis they get is the one that comes through the marketing team that you have faith in and you have trust in, that's come from the supplier, that's come from the agency that you've got a good relationship with.
And I guess that there's another challenge though. It's just because you can measure what happened in the past doesn't mean you can predict what's going to happen in the future, right? And I think that's one of the things that can pull it down sometimes. If you think you're predicting what's going to happen next, well, you can't, it's not with the modern techniques.
Do you think that would be, we've not done it yet, so we've not made any progress here in terms of weaving AI into our econometrics, but I do feel like that's the next step that I would want it to take, is that kind of like predict, which would be fantastic.
And one other thing I just wanted to pick up on in there is we pressed the AI alarm pretty early doors. Well done, Stu. It's great. I think the thing you touched on, and it's something that we've talked about a lot in the Media Leader, is what's the exam question we're trying to answer with AI? You touched on it a little bit. Like, are we just stripping out cost, or are we trying to create more by using AI? What are you seeing from clients and from within your businesses, Rob?
That's a big question. Again, there's plenty of MiQers here, but hopefully our corporate message, I'll get it as right as I can. But we're using AI to make everything better. to give people more time, to make cost savings, but not in terms of people, to allow us to spend more time with our clients, to spend more time focusing on, innovation. And so, AI, it will inevitably lead to cost savings, but that is definitely not why we've implemented it and gone kind of all in with our latest platform, Sigma.
That's well done.
That's 100% not been for cost reasons. That's just been to improve everything that we do.
And Stu, what about for you from an agency perspective? What are clients saying to you about it?
It's a really interesting one, right? I think most of the things we celebrate in agency land at the minute around AI, if everyone was honest with themselves, are really just efficiency around things that already exist. Probably in the majority of times constructs and operational things that actually are no longer fit for purpose, and there's not much use. I was saying to Neil before I had this conversation with an American colleague, I was trying to use the analogy of a boy racer, which didn't translate well because they couldn't figure out what a boy racer was. But if you imagine, if I took the first car that I had being a 1.4 litre car, and you can put a body kit on it, and that's great, and it might look a lot better, and it might look like something else, but you've still got all the capacity constraints of it being like a 1.4 litre car, right? So it's interesting at the minute that actually feels to me, and this is client-led, and even if we're honest, I think inwardly looking from an agency side, too often what we're doing is we're talking about building a cheaper car rather than a better one. And that's really what we should be doing in terms of AI, right? Like an AI itself, and again, something Neil and I were talking about, he might be able to give us a working example of this, but to me personally, put you on the spot. But thinking about, AI itself should probably work best when you have, complete clarity, like not Frankenstack stuff, right? What you should have is complete clarity into your financial data, your customer data, operationally, right? And then when you layer AI on top of it, what you should then get is the upside that we should be able to get from AI. But too often what we're doing is we're basically saying, we're doing that, right? But actually when you get under the hood of it, I've got 3, 4, 5 different things to give me the one single solution I was looking for. Then I layer AI on top of it, and I'm surprised that the signals it gives me seem a bit funky, should we say. I still think it's something that's, we've seen it loads of times in our industry, right? Something new comes into our industry and we're really good at clamouring to say we're all brilliant at it, right? There's a study, I think, from Marketing Week which tells you that I think 40% of there's about 3,000 again, and 40% of the agencies I think they've spoken to, or the marketers they've spoken to, said that they have over-indexed and over-egged their capabilities in terms of AI. And that's a bit of a danger as well, right? I think we're really well positioned. There's probably nobody better positioned in terms of scale, like to say how you go make the best of it. What we've got to do is make sure we do that in the right way, rather than just get a quick answer to it.
I think it's because of all, we know that the budgets, the marketing budget, the CMO's budget isn't going up that much, right? But the expectation is that AI will be able to kind of deliver a lot of efficiency and solve a lot of the challenges, and perhaps even with the reduced headcount. Comes back again to are we being given enough money to do what it is that we need to do? I also think it's interesting that, investment in MarTech in businesses is shooting up, but yet the media budgets, or the marketing budgets are staying flat, which kind of implies that the investment has been made outside of marketing, even though it has probably the ability to impact marketing more than any other of the disciplines. I can only imagine by looking at the numbers that the budget isn't coming into marketing, which then means that in terms of delivering the effectiveness, improving the effectiveness, delivering things like predictive models, the CMO in a business, I imagine now has to interact with many more people, the chief, head of IT as well, so that you can, because it doesn't seem like these projects are necessarily being managed by the marketing team. I don't know if that would be fair or...
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it could be tough, I think, being a client sometimes. Like a therapy session. Please charge me.
Or an interrogation.
A room full of agency people that are maybe not feeling the same.
That's the biggest laugh on the face.
I'll do a quick rundown. So we had a session with IBM about 2 weeks ago. I haven't heard of IBM for a very long time. I don't know about you, but they were kind of rolling some stuff out. Like, you heard of Watson? I was like, like 20 years ago.
Jeopardy.
I don't know where that's been. But so they had a session. AWS, another one that I kind of trying to get into the organization, they're kind of making their way in through the data and analytics team. We've got me, who's trying to implement some stuff with an agency called Jellyfish, who we work with, like our main kind of digital consultancy. They've got a bunch of different tools, which I won't sell them to everybody on their behalf, but there's probably about, I'm trying to think if there's any others, and you've got SS Mediacom, who are our media agency, who are bringing in WPP Open. So you've got probably about 3 or 4 different conversations going on at the same time. Equally, I'm looking at it from the inside and I'm kind of going, I don't want to lose the arms race. I don't want to lose it to the CRM team. They pitched something internally the other day. They were kind of like, oh, this is really good. It was actually IBM Watson. They pitched something internally, and that was kind of on the session. I was like, oh, come on, I've got to launch this stuff. So back in April, I went to the business and kind of said, listen, I'm going to make a synergy, cost synergy. I'm going to kind of, obviously we've got a number of different parts of the business. I won't tell you where I pull this cost from, but I made a bit of a cost saving, used the money to fund the recruitment of a tech and AI team. So I brought a tech and AI team into the media team. And their responsibility essentially is going to be look at the tech ecosystem. So look at things like Feednomics, AppsFlyer, all the different tech partners that we use, optimize that landscape for now and for the future, and then start implementing these AI solutions which are practical and we're actually going to see value from. And the last thing that I kind of got told is I got sign off at this people forum, which is notoriously hard to get sign off for, says the person who's grown the team from 5 to 30 odd people over the last 3 years, was I want to see value from them in the first 6 months, because they're not performance media people who do PPC, where the value is really easy for the business to get on board with. They're people who are more like project-based, who need to scope and define that journey first and then drive the value, and it's not really like super easy to really kind of showcase value straight away. So I know that there's a clock, there's a timer that is counting down to, at some point the MD is going to say to me, where's that team? And if I don't come back with a definitive, this is what I said I was going to do and this is what I'm going to do, they'll lose confidence in me, and then naturally we talk about CFO and the importance of the CFO. There's a confidence loss, and it's going to be harder for me to get things done in the future, like implement more AI solutions. It's just a little bit of taste of my life there, guys.
Right, and I think it's a really good. Talking about ticking clocks, ticking clocks. Indeed, other platforms are available. That conversation is a really good example of like how chaotic and how prioritizing when you're a marketer and you're a kind of an agency is really, really hard. So kind of, we've got our budget signed off. We're at the end of Q1 and the CFO is saying to us, okay, great, where are the short-term sales? Kind of like, you sold me the brand performance dream, I understand brand, I really like it, it's great, kind of, but by the way, where are the short-term sales? Like, what do you do at that stage? As an agency, as a supplier, how do you help when the pressure comes down and says, okay, look, you sold me the brand dream, but actually, look, I'm a little bit worried about this number here and the sales aren't coming through. How do we deal with that? Rob, how do you help your clients through that?
Often we just say, yes, sir, madam. That's what you want us to do.
That's exactly what we want, Rob.
I think, it's difficult, because I think we were chatting before, and I think the days of there being, sales budget and non-sales budget are probably gone, especially at the minute in the, I think coming out of it a bit, but with the climate we've been in for the last couple of years. So I guess you would hope that those sort of really short-term decisions would be a bit more few and far between, but I guess we still do see it. And I think, if anything, it comes back to what I was saying at the start. I guess it's like not, especially with us, we're kind of at the end. Same before, we just get told what to do a lot of the time, and we obviously we input and do what we can. But I think it's really important that and again, touching on some of the things around econometrics and all that sort of stuff, is that when that campaign started, with everything else that will have been in the mix, that the impact on sales, on the bottom line, or whatever it is, was already being considered. Because once you get into, like in that example, you get into a certain point within the quarter, your only option is to give all your money to Neil, let him hire some more staff, and drive some more bottom line performance, which will work, but then will be quite short term.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, isn't it? It's like you make, I guess in that scenario, I would say that you probably haven't sold in the plan well enough at the start. That people didn't.
But that never happens, right?
That people didn't really understand what the objectives of the plan were. Let's say if you forecast a particular number to be generated from a budget, that number doesn't deliver. The question is why, right? And I guess I think that, we touched on this idea of predictive models and scenario planning. And as good as econometrics is, and it's very good, I really believe in it, it's not a model to predict what's going to happen next. It measures what happened in the past, and what happened in the past happened within a context.
Yeah.
And the thing that historically we haven't been very good at is saying, what will happen next? And that would be testing all different types of contexts that could, and I'm incredibly interested in how AI can help with that challenge. And this is something we're exploring a lot at Havas, is how can you start to scenario, I'm certainly not saying we're building a model that predicts the future. That's nonsense.
Yep.
But what we can do is very rapidly now test what will happen in different scenarios. And I think that ability to scenario plan so that you can start to say, and it's answering why. Why did this thing happen? What was the variable that caused it? Because it isn't necessarily media. Your spend is working against and with different factors, and that's the context it's running in.
Sure.
But the media budget's the only thing you can really pull, right? So that's the challenge we have, is that we have to be able to say, well, actually, the reason this happened was because of something external, but this is how we respond to that external thing.
Yeah.
And I think once we crack, and we're working on cracking that scenario planning, future-looking part, I think that will be game-changing, because as well, you'll be able to show, if you shift this budget from here, this is what will happen now, but this is what will happen next year as well. So almost you're getting someone to sign a piece of paper that says, I agree to lose the business this much money next year,
I think that's so interesting because as well, and when you talk about outside influences and stuff, we were talking about brand budget and brand building, and basically the creative's rubbish and they've got it wrong and it hasn't resonated, and whatever it is that was trying to be achieved,
or
if
something
that
the
hasn't
competitor
worked,
is doing, it's the weather, it's this,
exactly.
and we often take responsibility for the things that have nothing to do with us, I think. So
Neil, it's not the creative's fault.
It's the weather.
It's the
I'd say it probably is.
We've actually used it. I think we've overused that with the CCO at Boots. So we probably use that one a little bit too much. He hates it as well. It's absolutely hates here. It's sunny outside, so we're not selling any more beauty. A few great points, like us not having sold it properly. I believe that media agency, any agency comes up with a great plan, it is your responsibility as a in-house marketer to, you package that up in a certain way. The people you're going to be selling it to internally, but you've got to sell that in well.
Yeah.
If you don't sell it in well and leverage people like, we're talking about the CFO, but really the CFO doesn't know media. The first place they're going to go to is, I'm going to have a conversation with a CDO, CCO, CMO maybe, and just form a bit of an opinion on how things are going. If things are down by 20%, something's very wrong, so we've got to probably change some stuff. But if it's by 10%, we're a business that are super reactive. The other point that you mentioned in terms of the external factors, one thing with us really is so price dependent as a retailer, promotional product. We had Fenty. I feel like my knowledge of cosmetics has massively increased in the last 3 years. I know so much right now. But Fenty was an exclusive product brand to us for a long time, and it's very much dependent on Rihanna's exposure and publicity. And she goes away, has a baby, completely drops, comes back into the limelight.
So it's not your media plan.
Well. It's Rihanna.
It's Rihanna's baby.
That's essentially where I'm going. That's essentially where I'm going. Yeah, that's essentially where I'm going. But I think if you think about that situation, Fenty then kind of go, we want more UK sales. We're then going to stock in more retailers. That was a huge win for us. And then this year, you've got to try and replace those sales. And can you do that with media, where you need the right products to stock to be able to actually push that, especially if, in a trend-led industry like ours. So there are a lot of different kind of things going on there, I think.
Sure.
You've not left me much to cover, really, have you? But
you can talk about Rihanna's baby.
One thing from an agency lens, I was saying this to Neil before as well, I kind of feel like that does highlight something around, I feel like the media planner of yesterday, like today, it's not enough to be a media planner, right? You're a commercial planner. So using that example you just spoke about there, if sales were down, the expectation, I think, increasingly, certainly from my side, thinking about our own business, would be that we have people within our business who are smart enough to think about, okay, why has that happened, and how do I now interact with distribution, right, as an example, to think about, is that actually because sales are down in a particular region because the product isn't even on the shelf? and that's the type of sort of, demand you get into. And again, this all circles back to, right from the start, are you getting the right metrics in place, like the business metrics about how you work? And it's, I don't know if I'm shoehorning or segueing, but basically thinking about, that's why, to me as well, we're starting to see this, massive rise of, clients that are increasingly interested in value-based pricing, and want value-based models, to get away from looking at, what sometimes are quite arbitrary conversations, around our old media metrics, basically. So it's the only thing I would add to it. I definitely see that as a change. That is a demand from clients.
So that value-based pricing is as much about aligning incentives, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of different versions of it, right? There's, but we're talking beyond traditional agency stuff. Anyone who's agency or client side who's done this, beyond PRIF and malice, so performance related and malice, in terms of underperformance. It's beyond that. We have a client who's on a complete MDF model, marketing development fund model. That is not staff at cost. That's nothing. You pay us based on us getting to the pre-agreed targets. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And if we don't get there, then I probably get fired. But
what if it was just because Rihanna had a baby?
Or if Rihanna has a baby, maybe there's some things around it.
But fiercely difficult.
But you said that. Do you know what? There's a really good example of that this year, which is the Trump tariffs. So that particular client was hugely impacted by the Trump tariffs because they operate in a number of different travel corridors, and their highest travel corridors were brilliantly for us. It was literally everything where Donald decided, it's 30% here, it's 40% here, fantastic, thank you. And it really impacted people in terms of how they travel. But that's the model we work to, right? So we succeed together or we suffer together. But clients expect that more, more and more. And I think, we're going to have to sort of make peace with that, because otherwise, like I say, the only place we end up otherwise is technology will completely disintermediate what that relationship looks like traditionally.
I think I'm really interested from all of your perspectives how brand then factors into that. Because because that feels like a drive towards performance, certainly in the short term. So how do you then make sure you're measuring brand and the long-term effects of brands? Peter Field was here on this stage this morning, he'd be furious if we didn't talk about the long of it as well as the short of it.
Exactly, and I've worked in a situation before, many years ago, where a client, and it was a value-based thing, and it was a short-term ROI metric in econometrics. So we do our job properly, push everything toward that, brand drops. So I think it's such an interest, and so many contracts are built on CPMs and stuff like that because it's something wholly in our control.
Yeah.
But even when you go to something like a value-based contract, you have to put the right measures in, otherwise you can just tank the brand, right? And it's a brilliant topic to think about, but it's a very tricky one to write down in a contract, I think.
No, it is, and honestly, there's certain, that stat I gave you at the start, I don't think you can go do value-based pricing and suddenly the 50% of people who go, you're just a cost, suddenly turn into advocates and go, wow, media and marketing. Who knew? So I don't think it's that at all, but you're right. If you looked at the obvious thing, commerce and retail, right? And then if you clustered that out to more directly, e-commerce and fintech, finance generally, anything that's subscription based, basically anything that's got closed loop in terms of how it's set up. Invariably what that means is you've got closed loop for a start, which usually means you've got CRM integration, which usually means you tend to have more advanced attribution model that's in place. So value-based conversations by proxy become easier to have with certain types of clients, absolutely right, and you're 100% right. And then obviously, real elephant in the room, margin, massive shock. If you've got a client, whatever they do, and their margin means that incremental sales opens that door pretty easily because they've got big margin. I don't know how you'd, taking it to Sports Direct to somebody, I don't know, I think has quite aggressive margin, I think. That's obviously not a thing. So you're right, there are challenges to it, but there's going to be more demand for it. And Neil and I've talked about that before as well. I think that might be part of that solution-wise might be taking a leaf from management consultancies. Having done a management consultancy, McKinsey side before, the idea of maybe squads. I want to achieve X, well, that's this squad that does that. It's it's data and analytics led in terms of your challenge, it's audience led. So this is the squad that goes and does that, and there's a certain retainer fee for that, and if we deliver X, we get this, and if we deliver Y, we get this. And I can see more of that, I think, coming into the industry. Straw poll of one, though.
Brand squads coming to you soon.
Yeah.
So we're pushed for time, and we've kind of, we've gone through our year. We're reporting back to the board. How do we feel like we've done a good job? Like, what's the number? What's the, kind of maybe outside of the metrics, but metrics? What's the thing that you've hit your KPIs? How else do we feel like we've kept our promises to the boardroom?
Yeah, I was thinking about this actually. So, because most of our customers are agencies, it actually does boil down to how much money have they spent with us.
Yep.
Which is a bit, it's not as glamorous or interesting as it could be, but it's ultimately how much of their clients' money have they entrusted with us to deliver outcomes on their behalf. So yeah, for us it's pretty much that simple.
Yeah, I mean, I would say in terms of the measures that we'd be looking at, we'd be looking to see, we tend to run on many clients' econometrics every year. We'd looking to see if that number goes up. But I suppose from a broader sense, from my team, we'd be looking to see, the projects that we started, like innovation and things like that, that they've been delivered, that they're starting to deliver results, as you said, that the new ideas that we're testing. Because I think that there's the ROI mindset can push you to just kind of optimising down, and you don't try anything new. We'd also want to be seeing that some of the innovation that we've pushed as well it won't all work, but that we've tried, we've delivered, and that we've had success in some places.
Yeah, I'd say, same, like econometric growth, revenue growth, saying something that you're going to do at the beginning of the year and actually delivering it, that forecast, or over-delivering it. Last thing I would just quickly say, because I see the time, I want to give Stu some time, but really quickly, I would just say, if you do succeed, if you do well, you shouldn't do that just on your own. Like, hey, yeah, internal client team did a fantastic job. You should really PR the agency internally, the suppliers, the partners that you work with.
And you know what you should do, Neil? You should enter the Media Leader Awards, which close next week.
Plug. Yeah.
The best place to champion your work, whether you're a brand, an agency, a tech supplier.
Love it.
Sorry, Stuart.
That's all right.
Thanks.
Not
Seamless.
Not much to add. Two things, I suppose. So all those things, completely valid. I think people are still the difference. I feel like, particularly from an agency point of view, our people are still the difference, right? So we launched a new strapline this year, where crafts matter, and I do believe crafts matter, but they can only matter because the people in your business, you give them the challenge, and you empower them to get mastery. Mastery leads to autonomy, leads to purpose, leads to inclusiveness, all those things. If we get to the end of the year and our clients are happy, but more importantly for me, like our people feel like that's something that's there, then I think that is success. The final thing I would just leave you with is showing my own age, again, something I was boring Neil with before, but before, when Meta was Facebook, I remember going around the corridors, and you get, with Pride, they used to have move fast and break stuff, and that was adopted, I think, largely by big tech, and most of the industry. We went through this period, right, and that was fine for the time, but we are in a very different age now, and if that was the time then this age of AI automation is surely move fast and fix things. And challenge to the room, I think, is between all of us, whichever side you're on. If we're going to do that and we're going to make the most of it, then it's, build better, don't build cheaper. And if we focus on that as like a hero kind of proposition, I think we'd probably end up with happy clients and, happy teams by the end of the year.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So all that leads us to, what a brilliant way to end. So build better, look after your people, and champion your people. Thank you so much to our panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Media Leader podcast. Our executive producer is me, Jack Benjamin. Special thanks to our production partner, Trisonic. You can find all our episodes on the podcast platform of your choice or on our website at uk.themedialeader.com. But do please remember to subscribe to be notified of our next episode. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at The Media Leader to receive daily coverage of all the biggest news stories in media and advertising. From all of us at The Media Leader, I'm Jack Benjamin. See you next time.